Thanks very much, John. And it's great to see you all here today and to see such a huge gathering that we've got, which testifies to the importance of regeneration in the North East and taking forward a lot of the very constructive ideas that were put forward by the review. Now, when I was Transport Secretary, for reasons I can't begin to fathom, they called me the thin controller. But in fact, my original controller was none other than John, because John and I both worked at the FT. We both started 22 years ago, almost. Yeah. I had more hair then, and his hair was black. But a lot of what I've done, he was my first boss. He was public policy editor, and I was education correspondent, and we did a lot of the things, actually, which have happened since in terms of public service reform, because John was a very dynamic and reformist General Secretary of the Fabian Society before that. We used to discuss then. So, in a sense, John, it was all your fault, and it's good that you're now seeing the fruits of it all 22 years later here in Newcastle.
I'll take the credit.
Now, it's great to be here, and I'm delighted to be joined by fellow review team members Heidi Mottram, Jonathan Ruffer and Bridget Rosewell. Will Hutton and Don Curry, who are also on the review team, can't be here today, but they've been very closely engaged since the report too. And I'd also like to pay tribute to all those others who engaged so strongly in our work. Mick Henry gave great leadership on behalf of the Local Authority Leadership Board, and all 6 other leaders of the local authorities in the North East LEP area gave brilliant support. Paul Woolston, Edward Twiddy and the LEP team were also fantastic, and all of them, I should say, the local authority leaders and the LEP do a fantastic job on your behalf, and they are really motoring with this report too. Now, somebody said of my name that it is the greatest offence ever against the Trade Descriptions Act. And I think that's probably correct. But when it comes to this Adonis report, let me stress that I was simply the conductor of the orchestra. It was your report playing back to you largely what you said to my team. You as businesses, you as local authorities, you as third sector organisations, you as university academics and leaders, and you as other engaged partners from a whole range of other areas. And what you said to us was basically this. The region has huge strengths. The North East is the export capital of Britain. Its people, its geography, its resources, its industries, its universities, its communications, its leaders, all huge strengths. This is demonstrated by the significant employment growth we had before 2008, and by really big investment decisions which have been taken, which have given really strong leadership to the region, notably Nissan and more recently Hitachi, who have chosen the North East as investment locations and are now amongst, Nissan is one of Britain's biggest exporters, and Hitachi, I'm confident, will become so too as it develops European markets. But the North East is going through a tough period. It cannot, and this doesn't, whoever is in government, this is true, it cannot rely on public spending as much in the future as in the past. The imperative is to create more and better jobs, which means better skills, particularly amongst our young people. It means more high-growth companies. Actually, it means more companies per se and more high-growth companies. It means more exports, what Will Hutton called smart specialisation, which is really playing to our strengths in the region. It means better coordination and strategic purpose collectively between our public authorities, and it needs a plan for all of this. And the report, I'm glad that John thinks it's short enough to be readable. Wasn't it Lord Chesterfield who said that I will write you a long letter because I don't have time to write you a short letter? We did try to get it reasonably short and succinct. And what I'm very data-driven in these matters, it was some of the key statistics that drove me into identifying what the key challenges were. And, just to give you a few of the key statistics, which I thought were extremely important in understanding the roots of the challenges of the region, the North East has 38 businesses per 1,000 working-age residents, compared to an average of 60 nationally. So we do not have enough companies, and we need more high-growth companies. We have twice as many NEETs as apprentices, as young apprentices in the region. We have 14% at school getting 5 A's or better at GCSE, compared to London, which has more than 20% who are now reaching that level. And for every 7 who go on to university nationally, only 6 do so in the Northeast. The Northeast is also a big net importer of students, but exporter of graduates. These statistics sum up the challenges which face the region. And this led to a series of what I hope are pretty crunchy recommendations, which, as I say, aren't ones that I or my review team dreamt up. They were essentially distilling what you had been saying to us over the months of our work, that what we need is really strong, coordinated purpose when it comes to strategic leadership in the region, hence the proposal for the combined authority to do 3 big things: to provide strategic transport leadership, to provide a real focus on skills, including the objective we set of doubling the number of youth apprenticeships, which could be transformational in terms of skilling up young people and providing a pool for growth companies in the future. And thirdly, giving a really strong boost to economic development under the branding which we set out of Northeast International, and acting as a really also powerful magnet for inward investors. And inward investors we always think of as being international. I've just done a really stimulating meeting with the Entrepreneurs Forum, 100 entrepreneurs all telling me about the challenges facing them. The point they made to me is that our mentality in the Northeast needs to be that inward investment isn't just about bringing investors from abroad, it's also bringing investors from within the UK to locate in the Northeast and to see its phenomenal strengths. So the combined authority to give important strategic leadership in the spheres of transport, skills, economic development. As I said, a doubling of the number of apprenticeships as a leading edge reform to boost skills. A Northeast challenge for schools to get school standards steadily higher on the model of the London challenge, which has been transformational in the case of London schools. The setting up of a network of university technical colleges, which would be business and university led, but getting technical skills developed very strongly from the age of 14 in key areas led by engineering, where there's a great shortage of technicians. Strategies to keep more of our best graduates in the region. Successor vehicles to the regional venture capital funds, the Jeremy funds, which are due to end soon, the design of those being an absolutely critical priority. Open innovation centres that bring universities in much stronger collaboration and partnership with businesses in the field of innovation. New regional financial institutions, including exploring the potential for a regional bank, which could give really significant support to local enterprises. And then last but not least, fundamentally better communications in air, rail, road and bus. Not forgetting buses, because that is in fact the main means of transport for most people to get to and from work. And one of the things, it's these crunchy things that matter so much. The thing I was most struck by when I was doing my tour of the region, seeing what the transport system was like, was the fact you do not have an Oyster card equivalent in the Northeast. It isn't, this is, in London, only 1.6% of bus fares are now cash. The majority is now done by Oyster. Here the figure is about 50%. So really important reforms which are deliverable reforms. These are not things that are unattainable. They've been done elsewhere and they simply need to be done here. And again, a combined authority with really strong strategic powers, we believed, could bring that about. Now, what's happened since? As John said, it's only 5 months since we reported, so it's a short period of time. But as we've heard both from Paul and Mick, there's been movement on all these fronts, and I give congratulations to all those who've been engaged. The order for the combined authority is, I believe, about to be published. I think it may be published any day, so that'll be open for public consultation. I think the expectation is that it'll be possible to set up the combined authority in a shadow form. Indeed, it already is there in a shadow form in the leadership board, which Mick chairs. That is great. And the plan is to get that set up and running next April. So the Northeast will be ahead of the national pack in that respect. The only other region that has a combined authority on this model at the moment is Greater Manchester, and the Northeast will be next. And then there are a whole set of other reforms in each of the other areas that were identified in the report. I know that the airport is currently considering a serious plan for a transatlantic flight. The skills incentive pilots are looking at reforms in the way that courses are funded to give a much bigger priority to science, technology and engineering courses from next year, including apprenticeships. There is a serious proposal on the table, as I understand it, for a new regional bank. There was a big conference here in June that explored the potential for that, and I understand that a serious proposal is being considered at the moment, which is great. There's the success that there's been, which Paul referred to in the European funding, which raises the potential of a €1 billion fund, which could take forward a lot of the work on skills and economic development that we discussed in the report. But in the immediate future, it's been possible with additional funding through the Regional Growth Fund to extend the existing Jeremy fund into next year, which giving time for the development of new regional venture capital funds thereafter, with a particular emphasis on innovation and creativity, which will be important. And the local authorities have together appointed a single inward investment director, Stuart Watkins, who I believe is here today, who again will give real leading edge leadership in that sector too. And I could go on. I've got a whole list of things that have been done here too. What we need to be aware of constantly, though, is the scale of the challenge. In the meeting I just did with local entrepreneurs, they highlighted for me two issues in particular. The continuing skills shortage. In a survey of them, which we did before the meeting, 76% of the entrepreneurs identified skill shortages as a big factor holding back their growth. And this is in particular the quality of school leavers in terms of their skills and work readiness, and also of graduates, and that needs to be systematically addressed. 16% identified inadequate local infrastructure. In a separate survey undertaken by the Entrepreneurs Forum, 62% said they had their major challenge was finding new customers, and in particular, as those who've studied this area know, the breakthrough in terms of growth is so often exporting for the first time and having serious support for exports, and seeing that UKTI plays a much more engaged role with you is a critical priority there too. So we set out an agenda. I hope we serve to give optimism and confidence to you to take forward priorities which you yourself had already identified, which I saw as a good part of the role of our review. And now I think the position is very clear. You have great leaders, you have a great plan, you should be shouting from the rooftops of the nation the fact that you are the export capital of the country, and we just need to get on with it and make it all happen. Thank you very much.